Welcome to Alabama Gristmills. Good to have you back. I appreciate all our listeners. I want to say hello to my co-host. I'm Mike, and this is my co-host, Donna Causey. Say hello.
Yes, hello. I came in a little early. I'm sorry. I'm just to talk today.
Exactly. Well, we got another fun story. This story today is about the town of Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and its rival. And it's not who you think it is. It's not another town in Alabama that you might think it's the rival. It's not Auburn.
No, so it's not Auburn. This is fun because I get to do one on Alabama, where the University of Alabama is.
Oh, yeah, you always like your Alabama stories. Or
yeah,
your University
I do.
Of Alabama
we
stories.
do too many ones with Auburn, so it's nice to get an Alabama one in here every once in a while.
Well, we're really excited here. We've reached our first goal of the Alabama Pioneers Patron Program, and really appreciate all our patrons. And it's exciting that we have a community growing, and it's also helping support us doing this historical living history of Alabama. And we've hit our first goal of 100 patrons, so we're now on to the second of 250. And whenever we reach goals, we give out we give out something. And then the first one was the book. What was the title of the book?
Where Do I Start? Hints for Beginning Genealogy is really what it is. It helps you get some ideas. It has some wonderful questions to ask your elderly relatives, and also you can get information. So,
and the next book's really good. The giveaway is the first Alabama Footprints book. You'll get that book sent to you via email as well once we reach that goal of 250. So let all your friends that are history nuts and just like general little nuggets of history and the way things were in Alabama over the years. It's a good program to join, so it's really exciting. So take that and look at that, and you can join by going to the AlabamaPioneers.com website, and there's a button right on the side there that says Become a Patron. Click on that, and it'll take you to the site where it all takes place. So, and you can read all the instructions on how to do that there. It's real simple, real easy to set up. So, but thanks to all the patrons, and we're happy about it reaching our first goal, and looking forward to the second. So it's really helping us bring a lot of new projects and a lot more material and capture and save all this material.
Right, and what's good about it, too, it's this way, too, that people can participate more, because there's a community section of the Patreon program where you can share pictures and add extra thoughts or queries or anything you want. If you've got more to add, stories to add, it's really easy and simple to include them on that, and you share it with people that are really interested in what you are presenting, too, because these are patrons that love Alabama and Alabama history.
Yep. And so check that out if you can. But we'll go ahead and get on into the story now. I'll let you kind of take your your Alabama story or Tuscaloosa story and run with it.
Yeah. Well, it's not the University of Alabama story, but it's a fun story. It's one I found. This is a partial transcription of a story by Ben A. Green that he wrote in 1931 and contributed to the Tuscaloosa News. And it was published again in 1949. I love to find these stories like that local people tell, because if you can believe in it pretty well.
There's nothing like going to the source on that.
Right, you're going to the source, people who lived during the time, and that's once in a while you can find some really good ones. Well, this one was about the city of Tuscaloosa, who had when it first started, it had a major rival in its day called Newtown. Believe it or not, it was just right down the road, basically. It's just another area of Tuscaloosa. A man named William Ely, he purchased land near Tuscaloosa after it got started in an attempt to raise funds for a Connecticut deaf asylum. So it was a speculative type thing there for him. He sold off the land to investors, and lo and behold, it was growing faster than Tuscaloosa was growing. It was very profitable for him, I guess. It was expanding so rapidly that in 1822, the citizens voted to move the courthouse there. And so for a short time, that area had the courthouse. And when Tuscaloosa became the state capital in 1826, And after the legislature extended the boundaries, and Newtown was absorbed into part of Tuscaloosa. So it kind of lost its meaning, being a separate town at that time. Then in 1842, poor Newtown had a real tragedy because a tornado struck the area. I know you hear of the tornado of 2011 we've had some tornadoes in the past, and evidently this one was very bad, and it wiped out most of the homes, including the old courthouse, which actually was made of brick, so you can imagine how strong the storm was. After the tornado hit, only 2 houses remained, they said, in town, so it kind of destroyed Newtown's progress for a while. But the name Newtown persisted in that area until 1900, and today it's known as West End. So the West End part of Tuscaloosa was actually the main growing area when it first started. And all that's left now is a historic sign along Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard that exclaims that's the Newtown Historic District. Tuscaloosa was almost Newtown if it had kept on going. There was another event that happened in Tuscaloosa that was very interesting. It happened on June 6, 1866, and that was when Tuscaloosa received the heaviest rainfall that it had in a 130-year history of the community, and that's pretty significant when you think of 130 years history that they had collected it. The news from the Alabama Beacon on June 16, 1866 read, "A member of the family of Noah been suddenly brought to life in this part of the world within the past few days. His first thought would undoubtedly have been in reference to building another ark." So that was pretty interesting. They evidently were very overwhelmed by the amount of rain they received. And the downpour was so severe afterwards, Main Street, which later became Broad and University Avenue, was divided into ragged parts and nearly drowned a number of citizens. Residents caught in the rain for hours feared for their lives because they didn't have any way to get help. I guess unless they had a small boat or something. The Warrior River rose rapidly to 60 feet and it flooded the surrounding land for miles around inland. You can imagine all the water they had to deal with because they didn't have drainage and such as we have today. Several mills were raised from their foundations and were sent down the river, never to be seen again. And after the rain, everybody went out to assess the situation and see what had happened and try to see if anybody was in danger. And they discovered a huge gully in the area where the Pinehurst and Audubon Place real estate properties were later developed. And the old YMCA was actually part of this big gully that had developed in the street on Main Street. The gully was actually a natural drainage ditch in the early history with a small bridge across it and a brick retaining wall. But it was transformed into a space 30 feet wide, 14 feet deep, and nearly 2 blocks long. And the bridge, it was just gone. It had been washed away. And after the rain, they had to construct something, so they just put a small footbridge over the 30-foot cavity. I imagine it was kind of treacherous going across it. Buggies and wagons didn't dare try to cross it. Those who did usually slid down one side or the other because they just couldn't make it because it was just a small footbridge. It wasn't anything real stable. So they really suffered for a while. Here, Tuscaloosa was just kind of cut down the middle. They had a difficult time getting from one side to the other. And they sunk thousands of dollars into trying to fill that gully for the next 20 years. And it's still, next rainfall, here it comes, it messes it up again, and they lose out again. Finally, in 1885, Mayor W.C. Jemison requested Colonel W.A. Hardaway, an engineering professor at the University of Alabama, to come up with a solution. Colonel Hardaway decided that the only solution was a heavy brick retaining wall, and a conduit running the length of the gully, and then fill the whole thing in. That way, the water could go within the conduit without washing everything away. Of Of course, the city didn't have any money at that time, and their credit wasn't good because all this is going on. It really hurt the economy. Mayor Jemison finally secured a loan if 3 members of the city board would sign a personal endorsement. And you can imagine here, this project had been going on for 20 years, and he wanted 3 men to give up their personal property as security for this project. Jemison was one of the 3 men, and Walter Harris and George Simpson agreed to place their personal property as security, and the project was completed by R.C. McCalla and Company. And ever since then, it worked. So on May 26, 1888, a bond issue of $10,000 was authorized for 3 men to get their money back who had pledged their property. If it hadn't been for them, though, the city of Tuscaloosa would have this huge viaduct going right down the middle of the city with a creek near the heart of this business section. The son of Colonel Hardaway became the city engineer who managed the project. He later became a professor at the University of Alabama and became a prominent engineer in railroad and construction work after he'd solved this huge problem. The sandy soil around Tuscaloosa really caused problems for many years. 8th Street was originally a streetcar track, and property lines were adjusted for a narrow strip of large ravine, making it the narrowest paved street in the community. And so they had the gully, and now they have the ravine. The ravine met its fate in 1910 when the Pinehurst Company developed a residential development and filled in the ravine. So Tuscaloosa has solved the problem of the big gully and the ravine over the years.
Pretty much sets the tone for what the way Tuscaloosa looks today.
Yeah, it does. It's flat now. Without the big, you can't see all the big ravines.
Just pretty much tells you how nature definitely plays a huge factor in the layout and the look of a town.
Nature, but the weather too. It kind of changed.
That's what I'm talking about, the weather. And that's even prevalent today with the tornado that just came through. It changed the layout of the town as well.
It did, and it changes things forever when things like that happen. I mean, you talk about how the tornado that came through in 2011, it took out so many trees that had years and years of growth.
Well, it just takes away the landmarks, too. If you come into town, the landmarks have all changed.
Right.
You kind of, it's like, where am I? Oh, that's where I am. It's like
exactly.
And where's that? I'm used to looking at that one building there, that one tree there. It's no longer there anymore.
And I cannot imagine Tuscaloosa with a creek down the middle of it, but that's what it was for at least 20 years, evidently. Can you imagine trying to go across that big gully, 30-foot wide gully on a little tiny bridge, And then some people with wagons and carriages were trying to go across it. So I just
challenges of the pioneer days. They were definitely significant.
30 feet wide, 14 feet deep, and you go for 2 blocks that way.
As always, we've always got the more information about this on the Alabama Pioneers website, where you can actually see the article and some pictures that are of the area, the Newton area, and out of Tuscaloosa. So check those out there. We'll put the link in the podcast show notes.
There's also some pictures on the website from 1887 of Tuscaloosa that are really remarkable. They're actually drawings. They're not photographs. They're actually drawings of the surrounding area and some of the trees and how large they grow. It's just amazing what you see today compared to what it was like a long time ago when our pioneers settled.
Well, check that out. And if you've got any other things or questions you have about this or any other topics, you can always email us at info@alabamapioneers.com or find us on Facebook and contact us that way. Like we mentioned before, we do have the patron program to help support what we do. So click on that if you'd like to get further involved with the Alabama Pioneers community and history of Alabama. And I guess with that, we'll go ahead and wrap this episode up and with a little Red Foley playing us out as usual. So we'll see you next time.
See you next time. Bye-bye.
Round on his toes, throws away his crutch and hollers, hey, let her go, oh honey.